Welcome back. You're now watching the lifestyle segment on the Weekend Show brought to you by Holocron Popcorn. My name is Andy Madaki.
And I'm Edith Young Frank.
How are you, Didi?
I'm good. Welcome back, Andy.
Happy International Women's Month to you.
Thank you, and happy new month to you.
Yes, and it's good to be back. How has it been without me for a couple of weeks?
It's been good. It's been good. You know, we've been having a woman running the ship, so that's
And
good.
it's your month. Maybe I should take another month off just so
Probably
you could do
you
that. Talking about taking the lead, agriculture is a conversation which we've always had in Nigeria. And I recall when President Tinubu was running for election, he talked about we can invest in corn, and people were like Agbado, and there was a whole lot of jokes about it. But we saw how the Ukraine-Russia crisis affected price of wheat, and that means bread got more expensive, pasta and all whatnot. So food is a big issue when you come to any country. In Nigeria, most of our expenses go on food, transportation, and then maybe a place to live, which are the basic needs for people. But how can we leverage what we have and what we don't have to ensure that we have a sustainable society? And we'll be having that conversation today on the Lifestyle Show. And joining us, we have
engineer Abayomi Onasanya, who is the Global Director, Africa House. Good morning, and thanks for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the Weekend Show.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure.
I want to start by asking, how important is agriculture to our economy?
Wow. Well, that's a good one, because whether you like it or not, you have to eat. And like they say, if you do not eat well, you don't think well. And you'll discover that most of the issues that we're having around the world boils around lack of food. When people are hungry, they're hungry, right? So you discover that a country like Nigeria, a population of about 200 million, if you don't feed them right, you're looking for trouble. That's a recipe for disaster. And as a result, you discover that agriculture represents more than 10% of our GDP in terms of our spending and all that. So agriculture is so important that if we do not take it seriously, we're literally looking for disaster. So it's a sector that everyone needs to take seriously. And of course, I'm happy with what the government is currently doing, because they're putting policies in place to ensure that we have food availability and sustainability, because it's not just about getting the food to eat, but how sustainable it is, because we've got climate change and a whole lot of issues that we're facing all around the world. And if we do not tackle that now and start implementing technologies and systems to ensure that our food production is efficient, is cheap, and at the same time is available to all Nigerians, then we will say, you know what, we're a food sustainable society. Otherwise, there's going to be a lot of trouble.
Okay, so I like your point, or where you said agriculture, we should take it, really important. And a good number of Nigerians don't go into farming.
True.
And
it's not one of those.
It's not one of the things where you're like, okay, let me just
go it.
Yeah, and one of the excuses is that we don't have access to the land for people that actually want to do the land farming and all of that. So how can we, as everyday Nigerians, develop, for lack of a better phrase, a green thumb?
Thanks to technology, and you can now grow food without soil. In fact, it's old school to think of agriculture as going to the farm, carrying your hoes and cutlasses, and then, because like you said, agriculture over the years has become very unattractive, especially to the young folks, because they'll tell you, I don't want to live like my grandfathers did, like I'm just going to stick to my white collar job. But now with hydroponics, we can even grow food in this studio. And it will shock you that if you go to places like the Netherlands, you'll discover that we have a new generation of young farmers in their 20s. And these people are actually growing food indoors. You see, in abandoned warehouses, in their backyards, even in Singapore, people are cultivating food on their rooftops. So the thing is, yes, there's a crisis when it comes to land availability, and of course a whole lot of myriad of issues that we're facing and whatnot. But the truth is, we need to start evolving with the world, because with hydroponics, I'm particularly mentioning hydroponics because it's an area that I know too well, and I'm a bit biased towards hydroponics, of course. But the truth is, you can cultivate food with very climate-smart technologies that allows us to even multiply the output of our food, because hydroponics allows you to grow food as in at least 5 times the normal harvest you would normally have on the field. So there's no longer an excuse to say, you know what, I don't have land, I don't want to get my fingers dirty. And of course, with hydroponics, you can also do organic farming, indoor farming, and you can eat healthy. It's so clean that you can actually harvest and eat without even cleaning it. Is that amazing? And of course, with a whole other types of technologies that exist to us today. So I would tell my listeners, you know what? Those are the old school excuses. We need to jump on the new train, the new technology train, and then we can now have a sustainable food cultivation.
Can you explain what hydroponics is? You've mentioned it multiple times.
All right. Hydroponics basically is the technology of growing food without soil. And hydroponics, takes its, shall I say, the idea or its cue from the concept of the soil, because soil has some things inside of it that makes it useful, which is basically the nutrients, water, and air. In fact, I came up with my own definition of hydroponics. I said, hydroponics is feeding plant roots with nutrients, water, and air. So that means if I'm able to get those three components and feed a plant indoors, the plant should grow technically. So hydroponics is a technology that mimics what happens in nature, but of course, in a more sophisticated, in a more sane and quiet and cheap environment. And this is the kicker. Do you know that we often think that hydroponics is a Western technology, is beyond the reach of an African, or you have to have millions of dollars to do it, but that's not true. In fact, most of the components used in hydroponics is actually from Africa, and we do not even know. And if I'm permitted, I'll give an example. In the villages, if you remember in those days, I'm a village boy. When you crack open your coconut, the coconut, fresh coconut, right? You drink the water, what do? You throw away the husk. But what we do not know is we're literally throwing away dollar bills, because these husks actually are what they use in producing what they call coconut coir, which could be as expensive as $100, $200. So these are some of the things that is available in Africa. And in fact, the Western nations and Western businesses come to Africa, go to Asia, pack all these so-called wastes, and then they convert it into money. And then we set up greenhouses, and then we import these things back. So this is one of the things that I've been preaching. You know what, guys, we can do these things. These are some of the things that you and I can actually do and make a whole lot of money. And believe you me, we need to power this revolution to let Africans know that hydroponics is not a Western sophisticated technology. In fact, you can do it even tomorrow morning. That's how easy it is to do. So hydroponics, it's something fantastic, because I'm getting excited here. You can imagine.
Mm-hmm. So let's break it down a little bit. I had a friend who, she was raising crops and producing crops in a container.
Right.
And I'm guessing that may tie in a little bit. But on my monologue earlier, one of my rants, and every week I have this rant to start the show, has been power supply.
Right.
Monday, Tuesday, I had no power, which means food in my fridge or freezer was going bad, which meant I had to go buy ice to put in just because
To preserve your food.
to preserve my food. For sustainable agriculture, power supply, I'm guessing, would be important. So with hydroponics, does this include using, because how does it work? How do you break it down? So if I'm not using soil, what am I using?
All right.
And how do factors such as constant power supply affect hydroponics?
That's a very brilliant question, because these are some of the, shall I use the word misconceptions about hydroponics? Because when hydroponics came to Africa, we were told it had to be done by a foreign technician, it had to be done by whatnot, you had to import everything you needed. But the truth is, hydroponics, has been customized to the African setting. For example, if you want to start hydroponics, what do you need? You need what they call coconut coir, which is basically, forget the grammar now. Coconut coir is basically coconut fiber. Those hairy things you peel out from coconut, actually. And of course, there are ways you can learn how to process it yourself, so you don't need to import nada. The second thing you need is nutrients, okay? And of course, many people do import nutrients from America, from the West, but we've come to realize that we can actually formulate our nutrients from the waste we have in Nigeria. From chicken, do you know the best hydroponic nutrients on the planet is from chicken poo? Can you imagine that? And there's systems, there are ways you can actually formulate yours. So you've eliminated the growth media, you've eliminated the nutrient, and then you talked about electricity, which is fantastic. Yes, hydroponics, some of the systems require electricity, and for one reason and one reason alone, to aerate the nutrients. That means to pump oxygen into the nutrients. But thankfully, there's solar energy. In fact, yesterday, I was in Guarimpa, I bought a solar-powered hair pump. So basically, I don't need electricity anymore. So basically, you can set up like a strawberry farm in the middle of desert in Sokoto or in Katsina. So electricity, in my own opinion, is no longer a major factor. And this is why I said customizing foreign technologies for African applications, because we need to reorient our minds. We need experts to show us the nitty-gritty of what hydroponics is and some of these technologies as well, so that we can customize it to give us what we want. So basically now, I would advise if you want to go into hydroponics, just get it done. You don't need electricity. You have all the materials, and these materials are actually free, because of course now we're on TV, people start thinking, oh my God, coconut husk is money now, right? So, but to summarize everything you need can be found here in Nigeria, and we can also start exporting some of these things
So
to the rest of the world.
you mentioned something which ties into my next question, and it was about when you mentioned growing strawberries
Yep.
in Sokoto. I love mangoes, but mango is seasonal.
That's true.
So with hydroponics, does this now defy the seasonal nature of planting?
Well, it does for certain crops, because see, what I tell people that I mentor is that, see, hydroponics is all about, you have to look at the business part of hydroponics. If it's for personal use, yes, out of season things out of the question for certain crops, especially crops like mango and whatnot. I'm talking fruit trees, I mean, trees that have big structures. But you can cultivate things like veggies, strawberries, lettuces, and basically all your veggies in and out of season. So you're no longer controlled by the weather conditions. In fact, I'm famously known for saying that I can grow food in the Sahara Desert. You see, so that means right now, I can grow the things that we grow in Jos, even onions. I can grow it in Akwa Ibom with hydroponics. So it involves a bit of climate control, which is also possible in Nigeria with all the technologies that we have. And if you look at the UAE used to import 90% of all their food from the rest of the world. And in fact, they spent 14 billion in 2020 on food imports. But guess what they've done? They've invested millions of dollars into hydroponics technology because they're tired of importing food. Even one of their famous airlines, I won't mention which one, you know what they do now? They have an hydroponic setup where they harvest all their veggies indoor for their flights. So it's something that is doable. We can do the impossible with hydroponics.
Excuse me, you've mentioned a lot of things needed to, start hydroponics farming, but I would like to know realistically, for our viewers, what are the startup costs if, someone's venturing into that?
Well, this may shock many Nigerians. You see, if you're a hobbyist, for example, let's say you want to grow your lettuces, for example, let's say we decided we're going to start. The startup cost is as low as 10,000 naira, believe it or not. Because that's why I said indigenization of these foreign technologies. What do you need? I need a bucket like this 4-liter bucket. And then what do? I get, although you should import what they call net cups, but you can use party cups, the ones we use in parties.
Yeah.
Customize it. Punch a couple of holes in it, get your seed from the shop, which is around maybe 500 naira. And then this is like maybe 1,000 naira, even if you're buying brand new. You get the cups, maybe each one is like 200-300 naira. So you're starting with less than 10,000 naira. So, and you can scale this up as you want. So again, the misconception that hydroponics has to be expensive for it to work is no longer true. We've demystified all of this, and we're encouraging Africans to please tap into this technology. This is the time, because Nigeria, like they say, we know they carry last. We should never be we're too smart to be hungry. That's what I always tell my friends. So hydroponics, the startup cost is so little, and in fact, for someone, a retiree, for example, someone who wants to retire, or you know what, I want to resign from my job. With 200,000 naira, you can start something small. And then before you know, you start scaling up as you go. And before you know it, we're all known as an hydroponics nation. So this is actually possible.
Reeling this in as a country, you mentioned in your introductory statement about at least this government is trying with policies and trying to push agriculture forward, which I've seen. But I've also seen that they've relaxed a little bit of the policies that affected importation. Now we have this conundrum where I want to support local with food, with even clothes, but let's focus on agriculture. But because of the cost of production here, in some cases, we could get some of these food materials cheaper from out of the country than the local production. When hydroponics gets bigger than it is right now and all, how does the policies which allow an open market encourage our local farmers to get into agriculture and these new technologies when the systems they're up against are way cheaper than them because they're already using mechanized farming, which makes it easier to produce more?
Well, this is where the political might comes into play, because the truth is Rome wasn't built in a day, and for Nigeria to be competitive or for us to be able to live effectively and cheaper, government needs to make a lot of sacrifices, which basically involves providing some of this equipment on a subsidy basis. For example, a state government could say, you know what, for all the farmers in my state, whenever you import X, Y, and Z, we were going to pay the import duties and everything. Or government could say, you know what, we could finance startup operations for maybe 1,000 graduates. So it has to do with the political. Yes, in the beginning, it's going to be difficult because now that nations are beginning to ratify the AFTA, you discover that, in fact, I was one of the advocates who said, you know, forget about us AFTA, we're not working out because we're not ready as a people. The truth is, there's a lot of dumping from different nations into our country in terms of equipment and whatnot. But the truth is, there has to be a teething process where everybody goes through pain, and then once we start delivering on the results, you discover will be better on the long run. Imagine the UAE spending millions of dollars in a technology they don't know whether it will work or not. But now it will shock you. In Sharjah, they harvested their first wheat in Sharjah, wheat in the desert. Exactly. So this must have looked crazy in the beginning, but now they're like, oh, actually it's possible. So we need the political might, we need the farmers to be on board, and of course, like I always say, knowledge is everything. Every Nigerian should take it upon themselves to acquire the right knowledge when it comes to hydroponics. Learn the technology, understand the basics, and then it will shock you how creative people can be. And I'll give you a simple example. I was mentoring some folks not too long ago, and these people actually invented their own hydroponic system. They're like, okay, I can combine this plus this together. So, oh, I never thought of that. So the creativity in us, the Nigerness, you know, if I might use that expression, will always make us better. See what we've done in entertainment. We started in the days of Idris Abdulkarim and whatnot. See what we've done now. We're on a global scale. We can do the same with agriculture, but of course, government needs to be in front of this old drive, pushing us, supporting us, and in fact, in the end, probably banning importation of certain items from certain places so that we can allow our industries to grow.
You've mentioned so many amazing benefits for, with hydroponics. I'd like to know what challenges could farmers face, you know, in adopting this technology?
One of the challenges that I've seen over the last 5 years is that people have a whole lot of misconception or misinformation. Because, you know, if someone said, oh, hydroponics, no, it's GMO. and I had to lecture that person for like an hour. It's like, hey, it's not GMO. You know, and so because of this, the acceptance is the issue right here. People will say, oh, why would I eat something that is grown without soil? So we need so acceptance. So now you've set up a hydroponics farm, you have your harvest. When you go to the farm, I want to sell this. Oh, no. This is GMO thing I've been hearing about on the news. So we need to first do a whole lot of work on reorienting the minds of the Nigerian. I'm happy we're doing this on AIT because the whole world is listening to us. And they would understand that, yes, hydroponics is safe, is a safer option, is organic, and then the export market is limitless. Trust me, because I would like to use Namibia as an example. They used to import all their veggies from South Africa, but once they adopted hydroponics, and I'm happy to be a part of that drive, now they're producing a whole lot of their own food to say, you know what, thanks, but no thanks. So misinformation is the #1 obstacle in this business. People need to understand the concept of hydroponics is a safe technology. It has nothing to do with GMO. It's organic, in fact, and it's very, very clean. That's #1. #2 is finance, like you said. Imagine convincing a 25-year-old graduate to say, no, go into hydroponics. So it's like, okay, fine. Okay, if my father can't finance me, where do I get the money from? So this is where we need to start talking to the commercial banks and the various agencies to say, you know what, we need to have like a climate fund or climate finance that would allow anyone who wants to go into this business or into this technology to start up real quick, like a startup kit, so to say, something affordable, 25K, 100K, 200K, for someone to grow food for their little community, for their village, for their estates, and before you know it, will be better off.
Finally, before we let you go, and thank you so much for your contributions, Engineer Bayomi. People would want to know more about this and what you do. So how can people reach you, your organization, and learn more about this?
All right. Yes, of course, we're Africa House, and we're a developmental organization. Of course, we're not an NGO, so let's be clear on that. And our mission is to ensure that Africa grows in terms of food sustainability and, of course, on the economic side as well. And of course, to get across, you can always go to our website, www.africa-house.info, or just go to our Instagram, Africa House One, on Instagram, and then you can find us there. And of course, you can always listen to us on different media outlets, and then you see some of the programs that we're doing. But our vision is Africa must feed itself. We must be rich. We're born rich, and we will be rich by God's grace.
Ladies and gentlemen, Engineer Abayomi Onatsanya, Global Director, Africa House. Thank you so much for joining us on the Weekend Show. This was the first time I heard of hydroponics when we had the brief for it. And we like to reach out to the everyday Nigerian to break it down to the barest minimum. And I dare say he did excellent.
And he's motivated me to, you know, have a green thumb.
You've got a convert.
There you go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Coming up next, we have entertainment, we have sports, and we also have our political exclusive on the National Assembly. Don't go away. See you after this break.